Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology, creator of the Salesology prospecting method, and I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. And today, my very special guest is Trent Halasek. He is a sales manager at Acres Packaging Service Group. And Trent has quite an interesting background. He was raised by a family of educators, and he's maintained his love of learning and teaching throughout his professional career. And he reads and consumes as much information as he can possibly cram into his brain to help better himself professionally and personally. And his path has been a bit non-traditional. He has a degree in accounting. He started his career as a staff accountant. And most people who were in sales will tell you that accounting work is horrible. I wouldn't know, but I am a dancer and I count up to 8 and I start over again. So, but Trent does take the opposite approach. He says that what he learned in his finance background is the cornerstone for prudent financial decisions and practical solutions. And it helped him learn what drives financial results in the industry, so that when he was elevated into a leadership position, he'd already learned the financial side of decisions, and it gave him a leg up. So welcome, Trent.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much for having me. And welcome. Everyone gets a peek inside of my twisted brain today, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I am looking forward to it as well, because I'm very curious. I want to know your backstory. It seems that you had a very circuitous route to sales leadership. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm from a small town in Kentucky that we're best known for being the Toyota Camry plant city. It's in Georgetown, Kentucky. And you can probably I still hear it, especially when I'm dealing with people that aren't from the Midwest or South. I still have a twang in my voice. So you can hear the southern twang every now and then come out. But anyway, yeah, I have a very non-traditional route. Went to college at University of Kentucky and got a degree in accounting because I was told that's the best course to go into to get into the business world. And I didn't have contacts. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have family that were really doing really corporate America business. But it's what I wanted to do. It's what I wanted to pursue. And so I got an accounting degree. I didn't want to do accounting. It's almost exactly what you said. It sounds horrible. It is. I mean, it's just very monotonous. But I highly recommend everyone to take those courses seriously if you are an up and comer, because it's stuff that you don't learn when you get into corporate America. Someone doesn't sit down and say, this is how you read a P&L, this is a balance sheet, this is a cash flow statement. You don't really ever get that. And then all of a sudden you're hoisted into, especially if you come up through the sales side, you're talking to customers, you're doing all these things. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, now you're responsible for a P&L. And you're like, I don't even know what P&L stands for. It's a big step. And so I do recommend that route. And then just from there, great cornerstone like I did it for 3 or 4 years. Went to leadership training, which turned into, the whole gamut from a production, because we're a corrugated, we didn't say that I'm a corrugated box guy, as we're a corrugated manufacturer, full line box plant. For the few people who know what that means we take a giant roll of paper and take it all the way to a finished box. Pizza boxes, Amazon boxes, and everything in between is kind of what we do. So anyway, I did the whole production side, I did quality side, I did safety side, and then I did the sales side. And I knew it wasn't necessarily that I was stuck to sales, because I'm not a very good seller myself. But what I leaned into was those skills I had from the accounting side to be good, and I've excelled in sales leadership, which are two very different skill sets. and I'm really passionate about helping others grow into those roles because it's a completely different skill set than being a great seller. And that's why I push so hard for training and development uh, for our sellers to go into other aspects because they're not going to learn much from me about the sales side. They're going to learn from me on the other side, the technical side, the financial side, all those things. Those are my strengths. So I very much seek the help it, in those areas for the 11 sellers that I have here locally.
Okay. We met on LinkedIn, and we had a conversation a couple of months ago. And one of the reasons that I definitely wanted to interview you was I thought you had such an interesting take on developing
Yeah.
sellers,
Yeah.
because in my experience, I need a lot of, I'm making finger quotes here, sales leaders that hire people and say, well, let's see what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And, or they're a born salesperson, so they're going to be fine. And that was not your take. And so could you share a little bit of your thoughts about developing sales talent?
Of course, I don't believe. I mean, of course, I mean, I'm never going to play in the NBA. If I practice basketball for every minute of my life for the next 10 years, I'm never going to play in the NBA. There is a certain level of talent that you either have or you don't, and that's true in sales. That's true in basketball. That's true in any avenue that you go into, music, education, anything. Anyway, but that doesn't mean we can't get better. No one is purely talented and doesn't have things they can work on, whether it's lead generation, cold calling. I mean, you see it all the time. There's generational gaps where you see your older sales reps communicate the best with older buyers. And you really got to help bridge that gap. What if the new buyer comes in and they're 22 years old, straight out of college, high school, whatever it is, you got to sharpen your skills in all those areas. So my whole premise is that continuing education is absolutely vital to every person. I know in the bio, which I wrote myself, of course, I talked a lot about how much I read, and I don't read John Grisham novels. I'm reading things that I think can apply to work and sharpening my own skills to make sure I'm on the cutting edge, whether it's the psychology of sales, the psychology of managing people, all the way down to the technical details of the corrugated box industry. And I really, really, really try to drive that home to my sellers. And when I'm interviewing, I'd rather interview 50 people and get it right than fire one person because I was lazy in the hiring process. And I really look for those. The two biggest pillars I look for when I'm hiring is somebody who's willing to continue to learn and somebody who has a lot of energy. Because if you can redirect positive energy, and if they're willing to learn and they come in and say, I know everything about corrugated. It's like, well, great. I'm glad. But that level of arrogance can really pigeonhole people to specific markets or specific accounts, specific type of people. That's what I look for. And then we train to it. We bring in, we coach on the sales side, we coach on the communication side. Those are kind of the two pillars that I always look for is train to both. And then find the right people who match those characteristics that we're looking for to continue development.
Okay, so I'm curious, since you're talking about hiring, do you prefer to hire someone with industry experience, or you'll hire someone that's brand new to the industry, or does it matter? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm sure for our industry, we make boxes. We don't make rocket ships. So I know it's simplistic, but it's not an incredibly complicated process to make a box. The paper goes onto the machine and a box comes out. That's really it. We're not adding much. You're not adding, there's no, some of the people that you talk to have just their level of aptitude so much higher than somebody like me, just an old box guy from small town Kentucky, right? So I always try to say I can work with someone who's willing to learn, and our process isn't so complicated that I can't train someone new. And I've found just in our industry that what I would call an industry retread generally doesn't work. So somebody who I see applies and they've been to 5 or 6 different places in our industry, you can make a lot of money in the corrugated box industry as a seller. Commission structures are great. it's a relatively short sales cycle compared to others. You can do really well. So what I found is these industry retreads, what happens is they don't have a good book of business, and that's the reason they're looking. Because if you are doing so well in sales, and that's kind of universal in sales, you're not going to look to leave your company because you're going to have to basically start over somewhere else, and that's a grind. That's a grind to go to start over. You got to really hate your job to want to do that, and so that's always kind of a red flag for me personally. Um, and so because of the industry knowledge is kind of secondary to me because of I don't want to diminish. It sounds like I'm just diminishing what we do, but the simplicity of our production process is pretty easy to teach and pretty easy to communicate our value proposition to our customers.
Okay. So, in preparing for this interview, Trent, I asked you some questions, and one of the questions I asked was about wins that you and your team had uh, in the past year. And I'll just read what you told me. You said in October, all 11 of our local sellers exceeded their previous year's October on sales revenue and volume, despite lower market pricing in the industry. So, you want to walk us through how that happened? What did you have in place? How did you make that happen?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it was a 23-day month, a 23-day shipping month. So that did help. We would have had one that would have fallen below if it wasn't for that extra day. So I would say maybe it's 10 for 11, not 11 for 11 if we'd had a 22-day month. But nonetheless, I'm counting it as an overall win for sure. No, when I took over this position, the one thing that I think is often lost when you're in manufacturing of any kind is you have to sell to your assets, and you have to sell with absolute laser focus. And most sellers, most of the people on here know that. It's not a novel concept, but that's the one thing that I just have everyone focus on is the message. Every year we do our customer surveys, but I also do an internal survey, and it's more of a spot to make sure I'm communicating my messaging well. So I give basically the same thing as a customer survey to every employee here. And I say, what do we do? How do we do it? And who our target customers are. Name all this, and that's from every person from the guy who just started in the company who's wiping countertops all the way up to the highest levels of this organization. Say, what do we do? How do we do it? And who do we sell to? And everyone needs to know that, and that's something that is in our HR first day that they're learning that, and then I just drive it in. Funny enough, for my position, this is going to sound backwards a little bit. I mean, there's people who write about this kind of stuff, but I, I, I focus on protecting our business model. That's my number one goal. And everything that I do, I want to protect our model, which includes, like I already said, selling to our assets. I want to protect that model because if I'm protecting the model, that's the first thing. The other primary goal that I have every day is to motivate my sales team to sell. If I'm doing both of those things, I'm not customer facing. I don't need to be, because if I'm doing everything I can to make sure we're protecting our business model, that means our value proposition is going to be intact for our customers. And then if I'm motivating our salespeople, my people are going to take care of their customers because that's their livelihood. So if I'm doing both of those things, it's the two inputs that are going to drive both of those people to be successful. They're going to be focused on our business model, which we know is proven and we know it works. And then they're going to be motivated to do it. And that's my role, right? I do go on sales calls and all that kind of stuff as well. But those are my two goals: protect the business model, motivate my people.
Okay. So, what exactly, let's get a definition here. What do you mean by protecting the model?
Sure. I don't I always do. If any of my guys or gals listen to this, I've said this a million times to them. We don't sell ice cream cones. Okay. It's the best way to answer is with this example. We don't sell ice cream cones. So everyone talks about, just customers always right, customers always right. And I say, no. The customer might ask you a question, but it doesn't mean we need to do it. We need to help them, but it doesn't mean we need to do it. Because if we are doing something that's out of our core focus, we are going to then not sell to our assets, which is going to crush profitability. Depreciate, it goes way off into left field into accounting, but depreciation expense is very much real. If you're not selling your assets, you're not capitalizing your equipment, you can't recapitalize. It's not a sustainable process. So I always say we don't sell ice cream cones. We'll help them find where to buy their ice cream cones. Absolutely, with our customers, but we stick to what we do well. So we sell boxes. I don't want to sell anything that doesn't fit that mold. Like there are customers, or there are companies that exist, like Uline, who will sell you packaging tape, packaging films, packaging boxes, everything. We're going to sell boxes, and we're going to be the best provider of boxes, and we're going to find customers who value that proposition. So when I say protect the model, I very much want that's the first part of our vetting process in the sales cycle is, do they buy boxes? Yes or no? Yes. Oh, great. Yes, they buy boxes. And then you go into all the other questions. But if we go into a customer and they're only buying tapes or films, there's a lot of packaging suppliers who will do both. We don't want to do that. We have different segments of our business that do that, but our focus here, laser focus, protect that model, keep the income flows to what we do well, because it's going to protect the customer and protect us financially.
Okay. So, there are a lot of people that would say, hey, they want packaging tape. Like, why not? We're selling
Yeah.
packaging. Why not sell them the tape? Isn't that more profit?
It,
And what's the answer?
yeah,
Why is that
you
a
know,
problem?
it, it, it's just that it's to me, it's all about focus. Okay. If we're going to be a full line, we have equipment to make boxes. We can make boxes at a profitable margin. Anything we're going to do on a tape or a film or whatever it is, whatever other packaging supply, we're going to be buying and reselling it. And if we ever decide that it makes sense to change into like a broker model for these type of things, if we think the profit's there, maybe we'll do it. And then we might open up the breadth of sales to our folks. But until what I would say is a leadership, a C-suite level decision to kind of pivot our model into that, I don't want, whether we could make money or not, I'd say that's just a strategic decision from the C-suite to say, what is the best way? So and that's not a great answer to it, because yes, who wants to not make money? But like I said, if we open an ice cream shop out front, we can start selling ice cream cones and probably make money doing that as well. But until then, until we buy the equipment, until we have the assets, till the C-suite makes the decision that it's a good strategic decision, my whole focus is keeping my people focused on what we're doing at the time. And then if it's a shift happens, it obviously changes. But on a day-to-day basis, you can't chase two rabbits.
Okay. And so, it seems to me that what I think you're saying is that it needs to be a strategic decision as opposed to a seat of the pants. Hey, why not? They want it. I could go get it and give it to them or
Yeah,
sell it to them type decision.
that's exactly right. That's why we do customer feedback surveys, all those sorts of things, because if we start to notice, and you do listen to your sellers, like if they're consistently being asked, everybody wants to buy tape from us. And I hear that over and over and over and over and over. And then on our customer feedback surveys, we're hearing the same things. Well, okay, now we got a bigger picture. It kind of falls out of the sales realm, and it kind of comes into a strategic planning type of deal. So it's kind of out of the scope of the exact sales cycle, absolutely, because you have to go where the customer's going. So if everyone in the world starts wanting digital print all the time, we don't know the digital printer, but of course, it's going to be on my next capital request if every customer I have starts wanting that product on.
Okay. So in the meantime, one of the questions that I asked you was, about some of the things that you're still working on. And you told me that making sure that your sellers have proper alignment to their goals, that they're on plan. And you said, and I'm going to quote you, untraining a natural instinct many sellers have to just say yes and we'll figure it out. How do you do that? Because I think you're absolutely right. A lot of sellers do want to shoot from the hip, and it's like, you want tape? I'll get you tape.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how do you train that out of someone that has a natural propensity?
Yeah. It's not easy. And I will say, look, so far I've made it sound like everything is very black and white, and there's not. Just like, there's shades of gray. I had one of our younger guys tell me one time, well, sometimes I call on smaller accounts because if I don't, I would run out of things to do. And that was really an eye-opening thing that he said, because he's like, I can only call on the big guy so many times before they're ready to send me to Mars. So it kind of was eye-opening, because it's like, okay, so maybe for a specific person, it's really, so now we're going into way in the shades of gray of saying, okay, maybe it's the idea of managing people differently depending on where they are. Like, I don't want my $20 million seller going and trying to sell tapes and films and going out of core, but go finding a $5,000 account or $10,000 account. That's not what I want my $20 million seller to do. But my brand new seller, a $20,000 account, he's going to be cold calling all day, and maybe it makes sense for him. So that's where you get really into the shades of gray, and you get into the management of the people side of it more than protecting the business model, because you can't, unfortunately, you can't treat everyone the exact same, because people have different value of their time, and they have different time resources depending on where they are in their career. So I know that's a big spin, but that's where you get into that's the management side, not the what am I trying to do? I'm trying to protect the business model and motivate my sellers. Well, once you go a step further and more into the weeds of the management of it, then you really get into that gray area where now you're managing to the person and to the person's needs and to the psychology of sales, which I've already talked about, and how to train and develop that. So specifically how to answer the question of they just want to say yes. It's hard. And I always try to focus on delivering wins. So I want to deliver to them, especially a new person. I want to help them get wins in the right areas. So as they're building their confidence in the sales cycle for us, I'm helping them. So it might be doing something on the price side, or, a small quantity run or something that I don't normally do. I'm going to be more willing to help them align the goals and say, hey, you're on the right track. I'm going to help you because you're trying to get to where we need to be and selling the right product line or selling the right product mix or selling to the right customers. I might be more willing to do, bend my own hard and fast black and white rules to help them win in the right areas that reinforces the concepts and of where I want them to go, rather than just saying yes all the time.
Okay. It sounds to me like you're saying you're open to them pursuing, correct me if I'm mishearing you, but it sounds like you're saying you're open to them doing smaller deals if they're not your $20 million sales leader. But so you're open to them doing the smaller deals, but you're not necessarily open to them selling tape.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I'm picking on tape. I don't know why that
it just struck me. So we're on tape.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to pick on tape all day. But yeah, in a sense, because I want them to be focused primarily, because we're a corrugated supplier, not a packaging supplier. There is a difference there. I want them focused on selling the boxes. So I might be willing to take a smaller account as long as I'm reinforcing the concepts of the product mixes that we want to sell, which is most important to our business model is having a nice, clean mix that we could run through our plant in the best way possible, which again helps the customer, helps us, helps everyone. It's just a mutual, rising tide raises all ships.
And so when you're talking about your model, I'm making an assumption here that there's a commonality from the prospect's point of view, from the client's point of view, that you could almost have it like a checklist of issues or challenges or things they want. And it's very fairly cohesive. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I always say our tagline for what we do is brown boxes fast. 3 words, brown boxes fast. So what we want to find are customers who value those things. So because we're not one of the biggest, we're not International Paper or WestRock or one of the biggest, the top 5 guys in paper own 85% of the market. Well, I'm in that 15%. So we have to find something that the customer is willing to pay for. And almost always you call, not Amazon or Papa John's or Pizza Hut, some of the biggest box buyers in the country. You find the guys who are a little bit smaller than that, the $1 million to $5 million account, where they look and say, I can't get the service from International Paper. I need my boxes next day because of XYZ. Yes, that is a prospect right there. And I know immediately when a customer says, I can't get the service from, we're gonna lower your inventory costs, we're gonna do all these things. And then yes, that's when we go down the checklist of how many of these boxes does this prospect actually check. And now, based on the needs assessment, which is essential to every good sales cycle, you check your needs assessment, and the more of them you got, the easier that sales cycle is. Then we know what avenue we need to talk to them, how to talk to them, and then it makes the psychology of the sales really easy when you can speak their love language.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of curious about your take on this because this is something. This morning I was running a coaching call with a client group, and since you coach salespeople, and this one particular salesperson sees every interaction, every prospect, every client is completely different. There's no commonality at all, is the way he sees it. And so I said to him this morning, well, don't they have this in common and that in common? And there's this other thing. And what about that? And I kind of went down the list with him, and he's like, no, it's all completely different. And I thought it was frustrating. And it was also very interesting to me the way he thought about this. Because there are some things that will be a little different, and there are a lot of things they'll have in common. And so I wonder if you encounter that, and when you do, how do you work with that salesperson? You're going to help me out here.
Oh man. I like it. It obviously wasn't there for the conversation, but that concept makes a lot of sense. I think more of it from the people side is I always talk about is talking about leaning into your superpower. And I know that's not a direct answer, but on the people side, everyone's different. You got to treat everyone different. Is I try to identify what someone's superpower is on the people side, and I want them to lean into their superpower. So like for me, it's passion and energy. Like that I'll lean into that. Like that's the way, that's how I try to motivate and everything. So to go to the customer side, I'm looking for their superpower. What are they? So in a sense, I think I like that concept of every customer is different because again, we're selling boxes. I mean, there's only so many different ways you can get your box. So, but everyone's needs are different. So I kind of like that concept because you're basically like I try to identify what is someone best at. Let's lean into that. Okay, so now maybe it's this. What's the customer superpower? What is that one thing that they aren't getting? And then how do we address that need? So in a sense, yes. And I think in manufacturing, that's hard because customization in the manufacturing process is definitely something that, in manufacturing in general is happening more and more and more at levels of customization. And it's happening more and more and more in the box industry, but it's still a brown box. There's only so many ways. So in a sense, I love that concept, and I'd love to hear. I can't wait for that one to come out because I'm really interested to hear more about that. Because I think I like the concept. Just don't know how well it applies to people who buy brown boxes.
Well, seems to me that people might want brown boxes and they might want them fast. And that's the commonality.
Yeah.
What's different is the reason they want the brown box fast. And that might be different for all the different customers you have. But they still all want brown boxes and they want them fast.
It's exactly. I should have just let you answer it. That's perfect. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So that was a very interesting conversation for me this morning. So I will keep you posted. Yeah, so this has been such a great conversation, Trent. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, the easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm the only Trent Halasek probably on earth. Halasek's not very common. So it's Halasek, and you can find me, Trent Halasek, on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way. I think all my information, my personal email's on there. You can look us up at acres-pkg.com, Acres Packaging. In any website request that you get eventually will hit my desk. So please reach out. I love to connect with people in the industry. any training seminars. I'm hosting a couple for industry wide. So if anyone is interested, it's all in there on my LinkedIn. So happy to help any way that I can. Anyone who wants to connect, talk, chat, talk about superpowers or protecting your business model, areas of gray, anything. So.
Okay. And if you want to connect with Trent, and you probably should, finish listening to this podcast, and then the link to his LinkedIn profile is in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to the podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. You'll be glad you did. That's how I was lucky enough to meet Trent Halasek. And we will also put the website in the show notes. So if you want to check out the website, finish listening to the podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. And you have been listening, and thank you for listening to the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast with my very special guest, Trent Halasek, who is a sales manager at Acres Packaging Service Group. And if you have found value in listening to this podcast, then please think about one sales leader, one business owner, one sales manager, somebody that you know that you think might also find value in listening to this podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.